In the final part of this project, we're creating a bus object. And so we're modeling the behavior of a bus. And the bus that we created has a fare and a rider count. And we've made some methods where we can see what the cost is using our get fare method. We've used our get rider count method to tell us how many people are currently on the bus. We tested those, and we added a pickup method so that we could pick people up, and a drop-off method so that we could drop people off. And again, one of the things, each of these parts, we're really adding a little bit of code and testing it to make sure it works. And we're going to do that one last time here. It says, update your bus class to keep track of the money that's collected in the cash box. When a bus object is first instantiated, the amount of money in the cash box should be initialized to 0. And for every rider that's picked up, the fare should be added to the cash box. And after adding this functionality, we're going to add a getter method to the bus class that returns the amount in the cash box. And then we're going to test it with some statements in our tester class that reports this amount of money in the cash box after we instantiated it and after picking up each rider. So there's a lot of stuff to do in this step, actually, and it's not as scaffolded as these earlier tasks. So this is really a little bit more advanced, but let's get to it anyway. So we know how much the bus costs, but we don't keep track of how much money we're collecting yet. And that's what this step is really about. And I need a place to keep track of that. So, of course, the fare is a double. So my cash box should also be a double. I'm not adding any more parameters to my constructor, but I do have to initialize the cash box to have $0 or pesos or an amount of 0 in it. And so I've done that much according to the specification. I've created a place to store how much the value of money that we've collected, and I've initialized that cash box variable to 0. So let's get on with the getter method first. We're going to add a getter method. My instance variable is called cashbox, so my getter method is also called getCashbox. And we're just going to return this .cashbox. That's it. Now we have a getter method, so we can actually ask about the cash box in our tester method. So let's go do that. Before we do anything else with this, let's just go see if we can get the cash box value. And we're gonna weave in the test for this cash box somewhere around here. So, or really in each of these steps. Let me go, my constructor did change, but I didn't change the arguments that I gave it. So this is still gonna work. And this says, my bus costs this much money to ride, and there are currently this many riders, okay? And so maybe I'll just say here that cash box contains, and I'll just add my bus at cash box right here. So I just created this getter method, so now I just want to test it. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'll clear out my output, and I'll go over here and compile my code and run it, and here it is. So let me make my view a little wider. So this bus costs 2.5 to ride, and there are currently 0 riders. Cashbox contains 0.0. And I didn't bother with the units, dollars, or anything else. But we're also going to want to check that after we pick people up, we want to know that the cash box, we want to see how much it costs, how much money is in the cash box. So let's go on to the next line. So we're picking up 3 riders, and then we actually did that here with this line of code. And now we're going to print out my bus currently has this many riders, and I'll add cache box contains. I can just go to the next line with this. What does the cache box contain? It should contain mybus.getCacheBox, that much money. So really, when we pick up these 3 riders, we should have more money in the cache box. But notice, we didn't. When I run this thing, I notice that here, this is where my code begins, and we know that we shouldn't have any cache box after we created this object, but after we pick up 3 riders, it still has 0 in it. And so I need to actually go back to my bus and make sure that when I pick people up, I don't just add to the rider count. I'm going to add to the cache box too. What are we going to add to the cache box? Well, we're going to add this.fare times riders. So I'm going to multiply the fare by however many people I'm picking up and add that to the cache box. And now, when this happens in my tester class, I should see, well, if I pick up 3 riders and they're each paying $250, I should see $750 for that. So let's see what happens. Just going to clear this out so it's a little less cluttered. Compile, run. And look at that. The cache box contains 7.5 now after we picked up those 3 riders. And I'm going to add a statement like this after I pick up these riders and also after I drop off the riders, just to make sure that, of course, dropping off shouldn't result in any changes to my the amount in my cache box. So I'm just going to do a little trick here and copy this piece, and I'm going to add it here. So after we pick up 5 more riders, we're going to see how much our cache box contains. And then after we drop off these 2 riders, we're going to drop them off, and then we're going to test to see that that worked. And I'm going to also report the amount in my cache box there. And finally, at the very last test. So let's make sure I clean this up a little bit so it compiles. I got in my cutting and pasting, I introduced some errors. So let's compile this. We will clear out the output here and run it. And what do we got? So if it costs 2.5 to ride and there's no riders when we first started and there's no money in the cache box, we pick up 3 riders, now we have 3 riders and there's $750 in the cache box. That checks out. And if we pick up 5 more riders, we currently have 8 riders and our cache box has $20 in it. And then when we drop people off, we have fewer riders, but our cache box has the same amount of money. So this code looks like it's working, and I've met the specification for part 6 of this bus class project.